This is a video tutorial to help you with some basics about supply and demand. The big idea is that there are three types of supply and demand that we will study in this class. Individual and market are the two types that we will look at in Unit 1. In Unit 3, we will tackle what's called aggregate demand and aggregate supply. So this type of supply and demand is something that will be part of our entire course throughout. However, in Unit 1, individual and market are in the spotlight because they're really key into understanding supply and demand in the future. Individual supply or demand have to do with one person or one shop's ability to supply goods. So, for example, if I was to think about one person, for example, Sam buys 3 apples, right? So that's Sam's demand for apples. The other thing that we could look at is let's take a look at Four Town Farm as a local business. How many apples do they sell in a day? So when we're talking about individual demand or individual supply, we're talking about one person or one shop. Then we're going to focus on market. And market, I think, is a little bit more relatable in terms of these are the things that you hear about in the news, or these are the reasons why you might go out and demand a certain product. And market supply and market demand has to do with the entire society's demand for that good, or our entire society's ability to supply that good. So for example, going back to apples, Americans demanded more apples than ever before due to the studies that prove their nutritional value. So that's a great market demand scenario. A market supply scenario might be something like there's a fungus attacking apple trees, therefore this year's harvest of apples was lower than it had been in the past. So individual versus market is what we're taking a look at in Unit 1. So the first thing is individual demand and also individual supply hinge on what we call the laws of these. So the law of demand has to do with price. It's all about price. That an individual's ability to be willing and able to buy an apple is directly dependent upon the price of the apple. So if apples are $3 according to this graph, then I will buy 6 apples. If they're $1, I will buy 12 apples. And that's pretty intuitive to your everyday life. If things are cheaper, you might buy more of them. If things are more expensive, you might buy less of them. Now, this doesn't apply to every single good or service, and that's more of a microeconomics topic because there are some things out there that are resistant to the law of demand. Life-saving medication, for example. If somebody needs something to live, they're going to continue to buy it regardless of the price. So you might be wondering about that, and that's a great thing to be thinking about, but it's not what we're looking at here. We're looking at most conventional items that fall in line with the law of demand. And notice how it's all about price. And when you plot these prices, they end up making this downward sloping curve. And we call that an inverse relationship. As one thing increases, the other will decrease. The important thing that you take away from this graphic is that we're plotting points on a curve rather than moving an entire curve. And when we talk about these points, the language that we use is really important because the language implies that we're jumping from point to point, and we say the words the quantity demanded, and we indicate that with a large Q and a subscript D. Now, what about this concept of supply? Supply is a little tougher, I think, for the average person to understand because most people are not business suppliers. So it's a little tougher to get our brains around this as consumers. But it's really about what can I supply? Now think back to the factors of production, your productive resources, your land, your labor, your capital. So if I own an apple orchard, How do I get those apples to harvest? I need human beings, I need natural resources, and I need capital goods. I need a basket to put all those apples in. Or maybe I need a plow to plow new paths for new seeds to go in, for new trees. So think about those factors of production. If I can buy more of those things, more land, more seeds, more baskets, hire more people, then I can produce and supply more apples. I'm not talking about whether or not I'm going to sell more apples. I'm just referring to how much I can supply. So the law of supply is as the price increases, the quantity supplied increases. And then the converse is the price decreases, then I can't supply as much. If I only charge $1 an apple, then I can't produce as many apples because I can't afford the factors of production. And we call this, as we plot these, you'll notice that it's an upward sloping curve. We call this a direct relationship as opposed to an inverse relationship that we had with demand. And again, we use the language of the quantity supplied. Some people will look at $5 for an apple and they'll say, well, you'll never sell 12 of them when they're that expensive. Well, that's not what this graph shows. You're right, I'm not going to sell 12 of them. But could I supply 12? According to this graphic, I could. So what we're accustomed to as consumers in the market is we're accustomed to this concept of equilibrium. And the word equilibrium means where are buyers, the demanders, and where are sellers, the suppliers, willing and able to agree on a price. So according to this, $2 seems to be the magic number for apples, that the consumers, the demanders, the sellers, the suppliers are coming to an agreement at this price. And that's why you see the lines intersecting here. So as a person in the market, you're probably not walking around and calling this equilibrium price because you're a regular human being. You're not an economist yet. But we typically just talk about this being the market price or the price on the price tag. This is what apples are selling for. So I'll give you a minute to pause here if you want to have a written description to go with what I've explained. Getting back to this concept of market, market demand and market supply graphically looks a little bit different. And it looks different because so many human beings are going to react in the similar way because so much of economics is behavioral, that instead of plotting points in the curve, we're actually going to move the entire curve to the right or the entire curve to the left. So I'll give you a moment to pause here and to write down what we mean by a market shift, but it's factors that influence demand and supply that are not price alone. They reflect larger market trends. So earlier I spoke about a fungus that could impact the supply of apples because they're going to destroy the apples. I also referred to a nutritional study that shows us that apples are good for our health. So both of those things could influence the supply or demand, and they have nothing really directly about price. It's just that there's something that's happening that's larger out there. Now, prices could be the larger issue. All right. So, for example, if you have a shortage of apples due to a fungus, then what's that going to do to the price of apple cider in the fall? Well, first of all, fewer apples means less cider, and any apples that do exist are going to be really expensive for the cider companies. So maybe you as a consumer are going to see higher prices on apple cider, applesauce, apple juice. You know, that's how we see it as people in a supermarket, right? So you're kind of used to that from your life experience. So first of all, you got to remember that we're working with number lines, and I'm going to use these graphs for two purposes here in a moment. One is to teach you what a graph should look like, and then number two, the shifting. So let me zoom in on this graphic that shows you supply and demand graph. So this is the type of graph we're going to work with the most in our class, and it is sort of generic in that there aren't numbers plotted over here. So take a moment and I want you to focus on just the black lines. So pause the video and I want you to think less of these green lines and I want you to focus more on the black lines. So with these black lines, you'll notice we have an upward sloping supply curve and a downward sloping demand. There's no need to make them swooping to show that inverse relationship, like this. You don't really have to do that. It's kind of easier and more efficient to just draw them as a straight line. So you're going to do price up here with just a P. You're going to do quantity down here on the x-axis with just a Q, and you want to put it far down in the end. And the reason why is because you're going to be putting labels in the middle of the graph, so you want to clear the space. Upward sloping supply, downward sloping demand. I always tell students just draw a big X, and then a nice strong bullet point where they intersect, and then dotted lines that bring them to the sides. We're going to call the equilibrium quantity QE. We're going to call the equilibrium price PE. And that's what every supply and demand graph is going to start with for market shifts in our class. So just this big X, you got your P and your Q, you got your supply and your demand, and then you're going to draw the intersection with these dotted lines and labels. So take a moment and draw one of those on your paper. Now that you've drawn that graph, let's talk about market shifts. So when we look at all these different shifters, and you're reading about them in the textbook, and you might even see them in some of the videos that I assign, these are things that are either going to increase demand, increase supply, or decrease demand or decrease supply. The cool thing is that the rules for both of these apply. So on my screen right now, I'm showing you an increase in demand. So let's go back to that nutritional study for apples. If there's an increase in demand for apples, it's usually because universally there's something that is contributing to consumers buying more of them, right? So if that nutritional study says that eating apples are better for your health, we're going to see this entire demand curve shift to the right. So all we do, I always try to tell students at least about a half an inch of movement just to give it that space. So we're going to shift it to the right. We're going to draw this demand curve on the same plane as the original one. We're going to draw that strong intersection, that bullet point again, dotted lines to the axes, and then an arrow up here and an arrow down here. You don't need to do 5 arrows, 6 arrows, just one above and one below the equilibrium points. So now we've seen how our life experience has taught us that if there's more people demanding a particular good or service, we're probably going to see the price increase. And that is how we would show this graphically. Now, you all have really smart brains and a lot of life experience, so you're probably thinking to yourselves, well, if everybody wants that good, then business owners are going to supply more of those. True, that is a possibility. But I want you to keep in mind what we're doing with these graphs is that we're actually just holding on that idea and we're just isolating the impact on demand. So try not to also think about what's happening with supply because we're not going to show simultaneous shifting on these graphs in this particular course. All right, so just rest assured if you were wondering that. Remember that the x-axis is a number line. So you're just going from 0 here to a larger number down here. So if you want to show an increase, then that's why you would shift it to the right. If you're going to show a decrease in demand, you're going to do the same thing with your graph, your generic supply and demand graph, like we talked about with these various labels and a big X. And then instead of shifting the demand to the right, you're going to shift it to the left. Supply has the same rules. Again, you see those generic graphs that are drawn there. There's no numbers plotted on them. It's just an X showing you the equilibrium price and quantity. And instead of shifting the demand line, now we're shifting the supply. So again, maybe those apple sellers are thinking to themselves, oh man, we got to keep up with this demand. We're going to really supply a lot of apples this year. The supply would be shifting to the right. Or if you had that issue with the fungus attacking the trees, now you're going to see that supply shifting to the left. So feel free to pause it and draw these on a whole separate set of graphs. So that way you are not mixing them all together on one set. So now that you have these graphs drawn, I want you to look at your supply graphs one more time. And I want to focus you on something that's going to set you up for success in the future. Let's take a look at this increase in supply. I want you to focus on how the arrows are drawn. You should be drawing the arrows as parallel lines to the x-axis. And the reason why is this. If I, for example, look in the future and I want to show you what this would look like if you didn't set up your graphs this way. Some students will be drawing the arrows like this because in relation to the original supply line, this new supply line is below the original one, right? So isn't it obvious that you would draw your arrows the way that I just did them? Yeah, it is. But the problem is that your entire life, when you see arrows that are pointing in this direction as these purple ones are, you think the word down. And down is typically coupled with less than. So the problem with drawing your arrows in the way that those purple ones are is that your brain is going to think that this is actually a decrease in supply because the arrows are pointed downward. It is not a decrease in supply. It is an increase in supply. So if you drew your arrows in a way where they were pointed downward, I need you to change them. And I need you to go back to your graph. And if you did it in pen, just cross the old ones out and write the new ones in. If you did in pencil, you can erase them. But I want you to go back and I want you to specifically have them shifting to the right. Or in the case of the demand, specifically have them shifting to the left and have them on parallel lines. And the reason why, again, is that your brain is used to arrows that pointed down mean a decrease and arrows that point up mean an increase. But when we look at supply, the line that's below the original supply line is an increase. The line that's above is actually a decrease because we're thinking more left and right, not up and down. And that's a little nuance, and it's specific, and you might think I'm being a nitpicker, and I am because I'm trying to set you up for success in the future. So that is a video about the difference between individual and market, and also how we show these graphically, and the language that we use. So these market shifts are about shifting the entire curve. You notice that in these? Whereas individual demand and supply is about plotting specific points and not saying the demand increased or the demand decreased. We're saying that the quantity supplied of apples changes as the price change. And we're saying the quantity demanded of apples changed as the price changed. So that is a video about the basics of individual and market supply and demand.